You may already own 2021's best OnePlus device and are casting an envious glance over at the latest release. We're here to examine though if there is enough of a difference to warrant switching from the OnePlus 9 Pro to the OnePlus 10 Pro, so let's get into the nitty gritty. Thanks for watching 9to5 Google here on YouTube. Remember to thumbs up, hit subscribe and then tap the bell icon to be among the first to watch our upcoming videos. So if you put the specifications of the OnePlus 9 Pro and the OnePlus 10 Pro side by side, you'll instantly spot a few changes, but nothing that quite stands out as a major or prominent area of improvement. The recipe for a OnePlus smartphone remains familiar, but with a few extra ingredients tossed into the mix for what we would consider a better overall flavour. There are of course some bumps to the internals as you'd expect given this is a 2022 flagship, and those include a new processor and a slightly larger battery cell. Of course, the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 offers some performance and potential efficiency gains too. The reality though is less pronounced than a spec sheet or a benchmarking software or application would have you believe though. Everything is still snappy on both devices, with little that you can't do in an instant and little that you just can't do full stop. Both devices come with enhanced LTPO AMOLED screens, but there are some slight differences here. Technically, these can drop refresh rates to as low as 1 Hz when viewing photos or even still images and content. Then it can also drop between 24, 30 and 60 Hz, so that you can obviously see some performance enhancements as a result, and then for battery life gains. The improvements though to the OnePlus 10 Pro's LTPO 2.0 tech means that it actually has a slightly better display with the ability to hit that 1 Hz range when displaying still images a little bit more readily. This should mean slightly better real-world battery performance over the 9 Pro, but it is actually hard to see this in action unless you do examine it really closely. Other than that minor gain there are some modest improvements to the 120Hz QHD Plus display on the OnePlus 10 Pro, including improved colour calibration that can adjust better at multiple brightness levels. That said, this is again not a massive real terms jump when using either screen, as they're both really impressive. The downside here is that if you hate curved screens, neither option will be a good fit for you. Daily performance should be substantially better or improved on the OnePlus 10 Pro courtesy of that latest Qualcomm chipset, but it's unclear if you would actually be able to notice this unless in specific areas like gaming, where you might gain a few frames, or maybe video rendering where render times are slightly improved. There's no denying though that the OnePlus 9 Pro is still a very powerful smartphone with so much RAM overhead to keep things ticking over nicely for a long time to come. Plus, there's the added benefit of that super fast UFS 3.1 storage across both devices, which means things just load instantly. If you are looking to pick up a OnePlus 10 model, unlike last year though, there is no regular OnePlus 10 in global regions, so that means the decision has kind of been taken out of your hands somewhat. The actual design of both of these devices is similar at the front due to the screen, but quite different at the rear. The camera bump on the OnePlus 10 Pro is stretched out into what looks like a stovetop design, while the OnePlus 9 Pro has a large protruding kind of iPhone-like camera lenses in that upper left section. That said, there is a little bit of a difference, but if you are looking for the more striking phone, it's going to be up to your personal preference, as there are fewer colours this year around, with the OnePlus 10 Pro available in matte green and black. Conversely, the OnePlus 9 Pro is available in matte green and black alongside a glossy silver option, which you can see now, which we think is a real fingerprint magnet. Won't matter if you put it in a case though. Side by side and in the hand, there is a little bit of an extra poise with the OnePlus 10 Pro over the 9 Pro, although it's not immediately a huge change. The edges on this new device do feel softened, but the differences are minimal, with all of the same buttons, that alert slider and port access. These are effectively just tunings to make this phone slightly more attractive. So while the OnePlus 9 Pro did ship with OxygenOS 11 atop of Android 11, it has since been updated to OxygenOS 12 and therefore Android 12. The OnePlus 10 Pro conversely ships with Android 12 pre-installed and a slightly newer OxygenOS 12.1 build. The reality though is that this 0.1 version contains very little new, save a few tweaks specifically for this device, like the ability to do things like adjust haptic strength and some boosts to the gaming modes that are not particularly groundbreaking. That said, the daily experience will be practically the same. The OnePlus 9 Pro as well, this should be updated up to and including Android 14, and because the OnePlus 10 Pro does ship with Android 12 pre-installed, according to OnePlus's update schedule, It should therefore be in line to get up to Android 15 within its lifetime. We think if you care about updates beyond these phases, you can always look into installing a custom ROM, which we do hope will be available for these devices very soon. In the lifespan stakes, if you look purely at the internal cell size, the OnePlus 10 Pro has the upper hand with a 5000 mAh battery, which is the biggest in a OnePlus flagship to date, would you believe? That's not to say though that the OnePlus 9 Pro has a small internal cell, which weighs in at 4500 mAh. And while it's less obvious, the usage of the more efficient 4nm Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset and that larger battery should certainly favour the OnePlus 10 Pro, but real-world longevity is not always consistent with these synthetic data points. There is a more confusing aspect as well to this device duo, and that is the 80-watt charging, as it's not actually available to those in North American markets due to a limitation in the AC power outlets within the region. Somewhat annoyingly, this means that US devices will be capped at 65 watts with the charging cable. This also means that longer charge times will be apparent and they will be more in line with the OnePlus 9 Pro, although the OnePlus 10 Pro does have a larger internal cell. For those of us in global regions, we'll still be able to use that 80-watt fast charging, which should take the OnePlus 10 Pro from 0 to 100% in under 35 minutes. That said, all regions can still access 50-watt wireless charging using the SuperVOOC or the Warp wireless charger that is available separately, and there is 5-watt reverse wireless charging across this entire duo. In the camera stakes on paper, the OnePlus 10 Pro actually has a less capable rear camera array than the OnePlus 9 Pro, as confusing as that sounds, and it all boils down to the usage of a different ultra-wide angle camera sensor. The impressive 50 megapixel Sony IMX766 sensor that is on the OnePlus 9 Pro has been ditched in favour of a smaller Samsung JN1 sensor, which is also rated at 50 megapixels on the OnePlus 10 Pro. What you may lose here in terms of image fidelity or perceived quality, you do though gain in the actual field of view. The OnePlus 10 Pro lets you shoot at an insanely wide 150 degree field of view, and it's almost a fisheye lens, which is usually above that 180 degree mark, and you can achieve similar effects to fisheye cameras with post-processing effects using one of the inbuilt camera modes. That said, it's a nice field of view to play around with. Is it the be all and end all? We're not quite sure when the Sony IMX766 was such a good ultra-wide. There are of course some old added camera modes here too for this newer model that might help make up for that loss of what we would consider one of the best ultra-wide angle camera sensors that we've ever tested. You're able to capture 12-bit RAW images with every single rear camera lens on the OnePlus 10 Pro. Things like tilt shift mode that also returns, as does the nightscape low light option, but a new inclusion is that of the long exposure mode, which can produce all manner of interesting long exposure images. There's also a new movie mode that allows you video capture in the log format. This means you can shoot a flat profile and grade in your editing software of choice after the fact, while retaining full manual controls when recording using this mode. Another new addition is that of dual view video, which lets you capture selfie and rear cameras simultaneously. All of the other Hasselblad modes are still retained here, including the X-Pan photo option, which was added with a software update to the OnePlus 9 Pro, plus the colour tuning by the Swedish image installer. The OnePlus 9 Pro includes an extra rear camera sensor though, in the form of a 2 megapixel monochrome shooter, and this enhances black and white images, but is missing on the OnePlus 10 Pro this time around. However, the newer model does come with a 32 megapixel selfie camera to make up for that monochrome sensor omission. So wrapping this all up and looking at both of these devices, save the minor camera, battery and charging speed improvements, just like last year with the OnePlus 8 Pro and the OnePlus 9 Pro, we don't think there's really enough to justify the jump from the 9 Pro to the 10 Pro this time around. There's certainly more of a case though for those of you with the OnePlus 8 Pro to upgrade, but you might not see as many major gains there either. There is of course a debatable step down in the camera setup on the OnePlus 10 Pro this time around, but there are other benefits such as the battery capacity, those camera modes, and charge speeds in global regions if that 80-watt charger is available to you, but you knew that already. I want to ask you though, if you're a OnePlus 9 Pro owner and you're going to upgrade, be sure to let me know your reasons why down in the comments sections below, or if you're sticking, then similarly give your reasons too. Of course, if you have an older device and you have any questions, be sure to pop them down in the comment section. But until next time, this is Damien with 9to5 Google saying thanks for watching, and I will speak to you later.